Let's get into the paper review this morning to see what the headlines are saying. And it's really interesting. I have one of our regulars in the House, Public Affairs Analyst Jide Ologun is in the House. Good morning. It's nice to see you.
Good morning.
And from the University of Lagos, Dr. Dane Kere. Good morning, Dr. Kere.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
All right, let's begin with the Vanguard newspaper this morning. It says, "I'll run an inclusive government," Buhari pledges. It says, "Election, not a war," promises to restructure Nigeria and the economy. Why I rejected Buhari's re-election, Atiku is saying that, and PDP kicks a calls for a rerun and faults its margin of victory in states outside of Southeast and the South-South. And how and why Buhari won. The breakdown of all of that is there for you to see on page 42 of the Vanguard. Now, from the Vanguard newspaper, let's move to the Daily Trust now. Buhari promises inclusive government. Atiku heads to court. World leaders congratulate the president. All right, that's quite straightforward and simple there. From the Daily Trust, let's move to the Daily Sun. Daily Sun is saying, as INEC issues certificate of return, we're moving to next level. Buhari is saying that, and Atiku is saying our mandate is stolen. Okay. Now, from the Daily Sun, let's move to the Business Day. That's the last paper this morning. Focus shifts to Buhari's second-term economic outlook. Analysts foresee ERGP sustenance, reforms to attract FDIs, and others. Those are the headlines on the papers this morning. Well, Dr. Kere, let me start with this story on page 44 of Vanguard, which says Tinubu lords Nigerians on Buhari's re-election, says he will continue anti-corruption fight. Focusing on the issue of anti-corruption, Nigerians expect to see, is there any change you want to see, something else you want to see from what is going on so far?
Yeah, thank you. So far, I think we've not really fought corruption comprehensively. We've only been attacking politicians. And I do know that corruption...
What's the difference between attacking politicians and fighting corruption?
Yeah, corruption is not
because
really
corruption is perpetrated by personalities, by people.
But personalities are not necessarily politicians. Politicians are not the ones who do the the internal runnings of the processes that bring about what they take away. And in any case, a lot of these funds, we understood, they find themselves in foreign countries. I doubt if the politicians equally carry the bags with raw cash going abroad. So how do these monies get out?
Yeah.
So it has to be a comprehensive process.
Jide, you saw that at least part of Abacha loot was one of some of the monies that were repatriated into this country. We saw how the monies were disbursed to the poorest of the poor and all of that. How much of that would you like to see in the new dispensation?
You know, we expect that this constitutional mandate should be exercised effectively. Like he said, the goal is to reverse the impact of corruption on the society. And until people begin to see that, they may not have faith in it. And like I mentioned, Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999, as amended, stipulates that the government shall abolish corruption and abuse of power. So when you bring all these elements in, we will begin to see the impact. And like you rightly mentioned, we need to look at all the sectors of our economy.
Okay.
The oil and gas, aviation, electricity,
and set the record straight.
That society is restored back to a vibrant position,
okay,
and we can begin to have prosperity.
All right. Now, the Daily Trust, on the page 3 of the Daily Trust, there's a story here that will interest you. I'm going to start with you, Jide Ologun. 2019 polls, voter turnout rises in 19 states. Are we becoming a little more sophisticated than the way we used to be, or maybe just enlightenment for people to get, people are getting more involved in the process?
Exactly, and that is participatory democracy. You know, the Constitution stipulates that sovereignty belongs to the people. And despite this report, many still complain that they couldn't get their PVCs. We could have had more getting involved. So we advise that INEC should continue as an agency to ensure that Nigerians have access to express their will. Because if you agree with me, that is about the only time, for instance, the electorates can come out and perform their part performance.
Dr. Kere, even as at now, we still see a lot of people who don't know how the process goes. They don't have an idea of anything. Even here in Lagos, we still find people like that here and there who don't have. How much more do the institutions have to do in enlightening people?
So much, because they still need to go down to the grassroots. You know, there are a lot of people who perhaps might not have had opportunity of watching televisions, maybe even listening to radio and the rest of it. So we need to do it in such a way that it will get to the very grassroots by way of, you know, translations into different languages and the rest of it. But one thing that we must equally understand is that apart from the issue of educating people, you know, on how to vote, those who are prepared to vote were equally denied in some cases with respect to the issue of thuggery and the rest of it. You see, until INEC, you know, cancels this idea of, you know, cancellation of votes as a result of thuggery, then you continue to promote thuggery, because INEC must ensure that elections should be organized or should be held as many times as it is disrupted.
All right.
Yes.
The institution or the agency, National Orientation Agency, has been constitutionally mandated to enlighten Nigerians in every way possible. What do you think that agency has to do, or what is it not doing right when it comes to, I don't know whether it is funds or something? Nigerians are not seeing much of that.
It appears the agency is overwhelmed, and there is a need for revival. But beyond that, that is why we must focus on education. I recall that I learned a lot about civic responsibility and issues like that right from primary school through secondary school. So some of us build that nationalistic feeling right from schools. We wanted to get involved. But right now, if we don't give priority to education, it will affect us. And
right.
if,
So
like
it's not only
the funding for the agencies are not flowing like it should be, and that is also prioritization. Like some of us said, the adrenaline and efforts we put into electioneering processes, if we put it into building institutions, the electioneering processes will become simpler and easier and more productive.
Okay.
Vanguard major headlines here says, I'll run an inclusive government, Buhari pledges. Moving to the Daily Trust, Buhari promises inclusive government. Atiku heads to court. World leaders congratulate president. And at the Daily Sun, as INEC issues certificates of return, we're moving to next level. Buhari, Atiku, our mandate stolen. And to Business Day now, focus shifts to Buhari's second-term economic outlook. Analysts foresee ERGP sustenance reforms to attract FIDs. Well, let's head into the paper this morning, and I go to the Daily Sun. And a story here that might interest you, Dr. Dan, is Buhari Oshibajo received certificates of return, and he has pledged, the president has pledged to move Nigeria. The president has pledged to move Nigeria to the next level. He said he's focusing on restructuring the economy, fighting corruption, as well as having an inclusive government, and also looking at security. Would this move us to the next level? Yeah.
Well, thank you. I think those were the same issues in the last 4 years. And what is left to be seen is how they are going to improve on what is on ground. And that is what we expect, actually, that is to do that. But the inclusive government, I really don't get the context. I don't know whether they are going to bring in, you know, the opposition or the other parties. I don't know what kind of inclusive
government
we're talking about.
Perhaps if the opposition is willing to work with the government,
but first,
they would want to work with them.
Yeah, the extension of the olive branch, have they made moves, or are they prepared to do that? If that is what inclusive government means, then it will be, you know, a welcome idea, because the idea of somebody who will make 45% and the one who get maybe 55% taking everything, there 45 being left, to me, it generates a lot of tension. Okay,
Barrister, what do you make of the president saying he is going to move Nigeria to the next level with the areas that I mentioned earlier, restructuring the economy, which is one aspect people have been talking about, as well as fighting corruption and security?
Yeah, the economy is very vital in any nation, because that is the area where you either have poverty or prosperity. And of course, a section of the Constitution, 1999, as amended, Section 16, has put a mandate on the government to manage the economy in a way that the welfare of people is secured, people are happy, people are prosperous, they are catered for. And I think that is a huge challenge. And when we are talking about inclusiveness, all the regions of Nigeria deserve development. Whether we like it or not, people had to come out to cast their votes. And that is when we can begin to catch up with the global environment. So I do not foresee this adversarial opposition approach to government. And whoever has the brilliant ideas, let's hit the road and reposition this country and, enhance the fortunes of the people. And that is when we can claim to be benefiting from democracy.
All right, now let's go to Business Day, and an inside story here is Oliza Agbakugba, a senior advocate of Nigeria. He flays a voting pattern in the presidential election, and he's advising PDP's Atiku Abubakar against taking legal actions. And according to him, he said the president kept his base in the north, while former Vice President Atiku Abubakar had largely his base in the south. We know how, I'll stay with you, Barrister, that the president, that's President Muhammadu Buhari, has a cult following in the north. We cannot dispute that. And so, obviously, that would definitely come to play.
Yeah, and Agbakopa is a key player in the judiciary. So that I advise must be well founded in foreseeing what may happen. And like some are saying, the presidential candidate for PDP may just have to calm down. His reaction is what we call emotional ventilation in HR. And if you go back to history, you ask yourself how many Nigerians have succeeded in pursuing their mandate. So I think right now, he may just have to come in.
Let's bring Dr. Kerry in. Now, one was expecting that after the peace accords and the various, let's ensure that peace, reigns and all of that, that we'll see what played out in 2015. Yeah,
but peace cannot be decreed. Peace, you can't bring about peace by signing documents, because peace is a function of attitudes and certain, activities. So now, if Atiku is going to court, I don't see any problem with that, because even in the course of the court process, a lot of things will equally come out that might even help the democracy we are trying to build. So I'm not against, for as long as he has a ground for that, let him go to court, approve his case. And in the course of doing that, I'm very convinced that just like the president did several times, in all the elections he contested, apart from the one he won, he went to court in practically all of them. So let the process continue. Let's try every process. Let's try our laws. Bring up all the issues that matter, so that at the end of the day, we can strengthen, our democracy.
Vanguard newspaper is reporting, "I'll run an inclusive government," Buhari pledges, and says election, not war. Promises to restructure economy. Why I rejected Buhari's re-election, Atiku is saying that, and the PDP kicks, calls for a rerun. Falls its margin of victory in states outside of the southeast and the south-south. How and why Buhari won. You can find all of that detail on page 42 of the Vanguard newspaper. Let's move now to the Daily Trust. Buhari promises inclusive government. Atiku heads to court. World leaders congratulate president. We have been receiving, the president has been receiving congratulatory messages already from parts of the world, from the UK, from Senegal, from other African countries, and so on. And certainly this week we expect more to go ahead. Moving from Daily Trust now to the Daily Sun. As INEC issues certificate of return, we are moving to next level. Buhari is saying that. Atiku, our mandate was stolen. That is what he's saying. And then moving from the Daily Sun now to Business Day, which is our last paper this morning. Focus shifts to Buhari's second-term economic outlook. Analysts foresee ERGP sustenance, reforms to attract FDIs and others. Now, one story that will interest us again is on Daily Trust on page 13, which says Nigerians want Buhari to focus on economy and jobs. Now, this is a new dispensation, and Nigerians may want to see something different or something more drastic than what they saw in the last 4 years. Let me start with you, Dr. Kerry. What do you expect to see in this next dispensation?
Well, thank you. In the first instance, I know that Nigerians are creative, and they didn't have an environment to unleash, creative ingenuity. But a lot of factors are actually hindering that, one of which is power. And so if you are talking about, job creation, and there is no energy, then obviously you are simply deceiving the people. So I expect that, except you are saying you want to bring them into the various ministries, which for me will not amount to
A
job
lot of people
creation.
have said that ministry work is not as productive.
At all. So truly what you should be doing is create an enabling environment for people, to begin to create jobs themselves, and before you know it, the whole place will be, active. So the power sector is critical, because as we speak, we still have challenges. In fact, a lot of challenges, most of the challenges can actually be traced to that sector. So until we address that aspect, we are still going to have this challenge of, jobs not being available, people complaining and all the rest, and looking for, white-collar jobs that people will employ and all of that.
Okay. Jide, when it comes to power, a lot of people say power is the backbone or foundation to economic growth or even development. But besides the issue of power, what else do you think they should be focused on immediately?
Basically, there are about 2 levels of wealth management, talking about creation. We have the local aspect, which the power may cater for. Then we have the secondary aspect, in which people bring the wealth into your community, and that ties with security. Nigeria is a beautiful bride globally. We have resources that can attract foreign investments, but do we have the secured environment for investors to want to come and invest here? For example, even the power sector, if we are bold enough to hand it over to investors that have played very well in the telecoms sector, for instance, who will help us? By the way, we have some of them managing our rail system and things like that. Then we remove the bureaucracy and the corruption that has tied us down. So we need a secured environment, and we need policies that are front-line policies. Policies that we ensure that people who want to invest have access to loan, policies that we ensure that our system of education is productive, like what you have in South Korea.
How about diversification? A lot of people, the word diversification has become a cliche now, where it's so common amongst the people. But what would it take to really achieve that, Dr. Kere?
Well, first is that we have potential in agriculture. And I do know that, several years ago, that used to be a selling point.
Exactly.
Yes.
In the First Republic.
Yeah, yes. we need to go beyond this, this politicization of, agriculture to the point
or even remaining a potential.
Yes,
country.
we must rise above that level of remaining a potential to the point of actually, impacting on our economy. And what that means is that we need to invest more than what we have done so far, in order for that investment to begin to yield, positive, results. At the moment, here we hear of, different programs that have been, operated, but we have truly not seen a full reflection of that in terms of the market, because so much has been said about rice. All right, but then we still have a lot of importation.
Okay, now agriculture still remains the greatest employer of labor in that regard. And some persons have said that Nigeria can feed the entire Africa. Do you think that's the way to go, Jide?
Yeah, Nigeria can feed the world if we are deliberate about it. And again, I will move agriculture from the rudimentary level to the secondary level, the processing of the products. One remarkable thing about Nigeria is that a lot of the products that are harvested waste. So how can we ensure that we introduce the business mindset of a place like China,
developing
production and exportation, rather than remaining at that level? This country is blessed. We can feed the world, and I stand by that. But how do we support that aspect? And that is on one side. Again, we need to let the key players there correlate, and that is why on the side of security, I want this government to rise up and resolve the crisis between the headers, the headmen, and the farmers. And I think the public relations experts can advise on that. It's about deliberately creating and sustaining mutual understanding and goodwill between the stakeholders for public benefit.
There has to be genuine reconciliation and change, because we've seen in part of Plateau State where there was an arrangement where the villagers, the farmers, and the herdsmen came together to have novelty and play matches and all of that. So it's really interesting.
It goes beyond playing matches.
Yeah, no, but it goes a long way to tell that, okay, we are